8th, 2025 regular meeting of the town board to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Present.
Councilmember Delarada.
Here.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Here.
Councilmember Britton.
Here.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Here. I had a great suggestion from our longtime resident and volunteer, Leslie, that a long time ago, we used to have somebody from the audience lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you don't mind, would you be that person for us this time?
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Leslie. We wish to respectfully acknowledge that Niskayuna is on the traditional lands of the Kanien'kehá:ka and the Mohikanic peoples, past and present, and we honor with gratitude the land itself and the peoples who have stewarded this land throughout generations. We are going to open up with privilege of the floor. So do we have anyone on the list?
We have Leslie Gold and Marina Franchow.
Whenever you're ready. You're first, you can go.
You'd rather not?
I said the case.
Oh,
Okay. Well, Marina, yes, thank you.
Hi, everybody. Marina Franchild, 2200 Dean Street. I know you probably all have decided how you're going to vote on the short-term housing. I'm hoping I can get you to reconsider if you're voting a certain way. There are short-term rental laws in New York State. There's a limit of 90 rental days per year for a permitted short-term rental unit. The maximum occupancy for a short-term rental is 2 persons per bedroom, not exceeding 6 total occupants. On-site parking is limited to the number of legal bedrooms in the rental. This is on the statute. This does not conform to what we've seen on the ground with like 20, 30 cars in people's driveways, with a house packed with people. So I am perplexed as to why this isn't easy for all of you, especially those of you that have legal backgrounds. And I know some of you that have legal backgrounds are sympathetic to the situation, the complaints. But it's not about complaints. You know, when I was an engineer, it wasn't about feelings. We all come here, speaker of the, privilege of, we talk about our feelings. I never met an engineer who had feelings about a gas turbine, to be totally honest with you. And if they did, I'd worry about them unless if they were the designer. It's about facts. It's about statutes. It's about legality. It's not even so much about what's right and what's wrong. It's what's permissible. It's not permissible what's been allowed to go on in Niskayuna. The planning board has come up with very stringent, relatively stringent guidelines. And the town board, to the best of my knowledge, has watered them down. My understanding, to make it really simple, is that the planning board wants people to host. And that means they have more control over what goes on. People aren't going to get drunk and carry on if the host is there, because they'll just kick them out or call the cops. All right, it's just that simple. You guys, the town board, I don't mean to say you guys, folks, you want to wait until there's a violation. Well, there already have been violations, and the violations belie New York State statute. So there's no point in having a waiting game. Let's wait and see what happens, because we already know what happens. In my opinion, I'm not a lawyer. I think you would be violating the law, New York State law, if you allow more than 2 people per bedroom, and if you allow more than the right number of cars based upon the statute. I think you would be in arrears. I think that it would be a real problem. I don't think it legally is prudent. I don't think it makes sense to the citizens of Niskayuna. And I really think that the last thing I'm going to say is that nobody on this board is an expert in everything. We have 2 people at least, who are experts in law. We have people who are expert in community affair. We have you who are an expert in social work. I have a lot of respect for how much you care about people. Everybody is an expert in something, but nobody is an expert in everything. Jason knows a lot about sewers. I know next to nothing. Nobody's an expert on everything. So I think that it is respectful and appropriate to defer to the wisdom of the planning board because they are experts and most of you are not. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina.
Good evening, Natalie Tiberio. I've resided in Niskuna for 45 years. I wanted to take this opportunity to further address the concerns surrounding the Airbnb issue currently facing our township. As I've mentioned previously, short-term rentals, particularly those listed on platforms like Airbnb, are businesses designed to generate a profit, often exceeding the income from long-term rentals. The success of these ventures largely depends on location, with areas identified as tourist destinations seeing the greatest returns. However, Niskuna has traditionally been a quiet, suburban bedroom community where residents live primarily for the peaceful atmosphere, often commuting to other areas for work. The introduction of Airbnb rentals, often referred to as transient accommodations, seems to contradict the very essence of what makes Niskuna desirable. Our community has always valued its tranquility, and transitioning into a model that caters to transient visitors could erode the unique quality of life that attracted long-term residents in the first place. While some may look to towns like Saratoga Springs as a model, it's important to remember that Niskuna is not and never has been a tourist destination, and attempting to mimic such a shift may not be in the best interest of our community. Further compounding my concern is the promise of future investment from the Airbnb company, particularly in the form of a community center. While this proposal may seem appealing, on the surface, it is essential to consider who will bear the ongoing costs associated with such an endeavor. Specifically, Niskuna taxpayers would be left to shoulder the financial burden of staffing, employee benefits, insurance, all without the benefit of additional property tax revenue to offset these costs. These are the same residents who already facing rising property taxes, and adding these financial obligations could place further strain on an already overburdened community. A potential alternative to this proposal would be to look at models like the YMCA, as seen in Clifton Park and Saratoga. These organizations, run by outside firms, take on the responsibility of funding their own operations, including employee salaries and benefits, while still providing a valuable service to the community. The cost to residents typically comes in the form of an affordable membership fee, which would be far more sustainable and equitable for the Niskuna taxpayer. Lastly, we must consider the impact on local businesses. Currently, commercial businesses in Niskuna pay higher taxes and water rates, and it is only fair that the Airbnb rentals operating as businesses are held to the same standards. Airbnb rentals should be regulated and zoned as businesses operating in commercial areas where they can contribute fairly to the local economy, rather than in residential zones that were never intended for such purposes. I strongly urge you to reconsider the approach to Airbnb rentals in Niskuna and to engage in a broader discussion that prioritizes the long-term interests of the community and its residents. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Mike. I reside on Console Road. I'm here again to ask that you do something about the extensive speeding on Console Road, especially between 3450 and Brendan. This makes my 5th time with a written notice and 9 months with verbal notice. And I want to thank you for your service, sir. You were fantastic up there. You were concerned about me, and I was glad to hear that. I also would like this town board to understand that these meetings are for the people and not for campaign speeches. Thank you.
Alice Rubenfeld, 2122 Orchard Park Drive, Niskuna, New York. So being in real estate, I'm going to ask you a real estate question. There's a house that's going to be for sale at some point on Milton Keynes. Which one of you would like to live on that street while the Airbnb is still operating? Which one of you would invest in what for most people is their single largest investment in their lives, to live next door to a house that has become known as the party house? Which one of you would be aggravated to find out that some real estate agent who had no scruples was going to solicit your neighbor to see if they would like to sell their house and turn it into an Airbnb? Each one of you thinks about NIMBY, not in my backyard. It's okay for other people. When you make this vote, and it is going to be a vote that is made very public in through the newspapers, this condemns you to being part of the problem as opposed to part of the solution. The very fact that you have the right to override the planning board is astounding to me. You're asking experts to give way to politicians. I will say this. Look what Saratoga has become. It's become Lake George. There is nothing about Saratoga that even remotely resembles the charming town that it was when I moved up here. It has become a factory like Lake George, with people running around in nylon running shorts during the day. And Mary Lou Whitney, I can promise you, is spinning in her grave. Think about this. Not in your backyard, but okay in my backyard? I don't think so. This is a very big political decision that I am sure the newspapers will have a field day with. Have a great night.
Would anybody else like to speak? All right, with that then, we will close privilege of the floor and we'll move on to committee reports. We're going to start with police and public safety.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. The Police and Public Safety Committee met on January 2nd, and under operations, Chief Koshin reminded us of the 9 p.m. routine reminder that the department is really trying to focus the community on, which is lock up, turn on, and bring in, referring to taking good care of our cars and our vehicles and bringing in all our valuables, because larcenies do go, vehicle larcenies go up this time of year. So that was just a reminder to the community. Under training, we had SRO training for Officers Guest and Henry. They verbalized interest to go, and they completed that training. We also have a resolution to complete our payment for our 2025 membership fees for our Zone 5 Regional Academy. These are annual dues that we pay every year. Under citizen correspondence ongoing, we have Baker Ave at North Ravine Road, and there's a trailer that's going to be going up and gathering data from Banker. We have a resolution tonight to look at our Onondaga Road and Troy Schenectady Road parking. Is recommended from Laura Robertson for about a 200-foot no parking as you leave Onondaga and go towards Route 7 for safety and vision on the road. We did have a citizen correspondence. People were concerned about hunting in the town of Niskayuna. So Chief clarified that. He said that there are no firearm hunting, there's no firearm hunting allowed in Niskayuna, and we're going to be pushing out more info, maybe do an infographic as hunting season comes around again, just to help everyone, ease their minds. For town clerk, we have a resolution on for peddling and solicitation. We're looking to establish a registry and keep track of people who would like to not have solicitation at their homes. We discussed FOIL and the charges, and the rule is that the lowest paid employee who's capable of reviewing the FOIL is the one that we need to pay the hourly fee to, and that gets passed on to our residents. We discussed how Attorney Finnan is the lowest paid employee allowed to do that, and that could be very costly to our residents. So we discussed really increasing communication with people. So if they requested a FOIL, we could make sure we're getting them exactly what they need and reducing the amount of time they would get charged for the review of the files. So just trying to really increase communication and make it reasonable for our taxpayers and for our town. Under personnel, we have Christine O'Brien. She's been a Secretary 1 for 3 years. She works super hard. We're very thankful for all she does. And we're looking to promote her to Executive Secretary 2 in a resolution tonight. We've also contacted a local traffic engineer who does work with Schenectady County municipalities, and he's going to be assisting us with traffic studies. We have a Town of Niskayuna event application for town code and road closures. The application's mostly complete, and we're working on process and procedures to make sure that maybe everything's more cohesive. If somebody wants to close a road or have an event, that everything's in one location on the website and very clear for everyone to sign up for that. We were awarded the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, and that was a $500,000 grant that Chief Koshin applied for. It'll be going to purchase 2 traffic and community engagement vehicles that will also have license plate readers on them. We'll be getting new tasers. We'll be getting upfitted for portables, and we're going to upfit the gym in the basement. And those were all detailed in the grant application, so that's where the money will be going. And it's a pretty big grant, and we weren't expecting to get that much, so it's very exciting. Up for resolution tonight, we have a resolution to appoint an Executive Secretary 2. We have a resolution to accept the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Grant. We have a resolution calling for a public hearing to amend town code for the parking on Onondaga. We have a resolution calling for public hearing to amend Chapter 151 of the town code for peddling and solicitation. We have a resolution authorizing payment for our membership fees to the Zone 5 Regional Law Enforcement Academy. And we have a resolution to amend Resolution 2024-250 to upfit 3 police vehicles, not 2, at no further cost. And our next meeting will be February 6th at 3:30.
Thank you, Councilmember Brennan. We'll move on to community programs, highway and parks.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Highway Parks and Recreation Committee met on January 2nd. At our meeting, our highway superintendent reported on the work that the highway crews continue to do, not only plowing the streets, but when they're not doing that, they're still working on patching roads, basin repair, and small drainage projects. Personnel-wise, I'm happy to report that we have a resolution tonight for 2 workers for the grounds maintenance workers. So as you've heard me many times say, we're looking for people, so we're glad that we've got 2 that we're going to hire. There'll be a resolution for that. The parks crews continue to work. We're going to be doing some work on the bike path, drainage work, and cutting some things on the bike path. We do that in the winter because there's less usage of the bike path in the winter, so we try to do some of the work to get things taken care of down there. We talked about our yard waste pickup for 2024. It was an exceptional year of high yard waste. We picked up 475 10-wheelers of leaves this year. So that was a lot of material. So we are looking at that, hoping that this year was just a spike and it's not going to continue at that rate. If it does, then we'll be looking at how we're going to be able to sustain our crews and getting this work done on a timely basis and the amount of money that it's costing the town. Christmas tree pickup. That's going to be ending February 7th. So we're still out picking up real Christmas trees. If you have them, please strip them down. No plastic ornaments, metal, or anything like that. And we compost all of those trees. They get chipped up and all that material is used as compost. Also at the meeting, we discussed some drainage issues in the town over on Alva Drive and discussed Alice Wagner Way, a stop sign there. And we had some members from the community there that met with us and talked about our disc golf course, which is over there near Blatnick Park, and some mowing options there and looking at a couple of little different things over there. So we thank the residents for coming in and talking to us about that. Recreation Committee program and community programs. We gave a little recap on all of our December events. It was a very busy December. If you participated in any of the events, we sort of do after action on all these to see how much people are participating and if things are going as planned for our tree lighting, parents' night out, our wish tags, all of this stuff. Excellent support. Toys for Tots. Everything went very well. January and February events, we're running a bus now. It's a ski club bus that we run for the high schoolers. That's a very popular program that's running, and the bus is full. Our adult Tai Chi starts January 7th. Summer planning update, summer employment applications, that'll be available online February 1st through March 1st. So if you know anyone that's looking for summer employment, send them over to the town website, and we're accepting applications for that. We discussed also some of our sports clubs in meeting and getting discussions together with them about policies and procedures for maintenance of our fields and scheduling events. We also discussed the farmers market, and then we got a report about our seniors program down at our rec center. Again, that stuff is all online and also on the senior center Facebook. So a lot of programs going on down there. So please, if you know someone that maybe is a senior, it is the winter time, wants to get out, needs a little more activity, now's a great time. They have a lot of new people coming in, and just got a letter today from a woman that came for the first time, very excited, been in a house in the winter and now went down there and very much is appreciating all that's going on down there. And our next meeting will be February 6th at 8 a.m. Also, we have a lot of resolutions. I missed this on the highway department. There are a lot of resolutions on tonight about equipment and purchases for the highway department. All of the stuff that's on the resolutions this evening is all budgeted for. And there are quite a few items that are in this list that came in under budget. So I want to thank the highway department and the people there for their excellent work and really doing a good job to get the most value that we can for the town taxpayers' money.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember McPartlin. We'll move on to Water, Sewer, and Engineering.
Thank you, Supervisor. The Water, Sewer, and Engineering Committee met earlier this month on January 7th. And under attorney's items, we discussed a memorandum of understanding that's currently in the works with CAPL related to the testing of water in their site to check for the presence of mercury. As a municipality, we are required to test our sewer water for the presence of mercury as part of a mercury minimization plan. And a recommendation under that plan is to also test at industrial complexes. So that agreement is in the works and will be coming up in the coming months for a vote. Our water and sewer rate study that we are conducting in partnership with Raftellus is underway. Our agreement with them has been executed, and we are currently in the process of reviewing our own records relative to costs and expenditures, and we are beginning to submit data to Raftellus as it is requested. At the wastewater treatment plant, we have officially been granted approval from DEC for the acceptance of way waste. No changes to our permit were required after our pilot program that concluded a couple of months ago, and that I've been reporting on for the last several months. And we are now in the process of working on agreement with Chobani so we can continue to receive their deliveries. Also at the wastewater treatment plant, we are working with Martin LaJudas regarding the replacement of some stainless steel methane gas lines. These conversations are still preliminary. Martin LaJudas is sorting through some data from our digesters, and there is nothing on the agenda tonight regarding this, but just so the board is aware, it may be an upcoming discussion. As far as resolutions that are on tonight's agenda, we will be voting to authorize the purchase of parts for pump station repairs. We have a resolution authorizing the reconciliation of utility rents, a resolution appointing an assistant to the superintendent of water and sewer, and also a ceremonial resolution recognizing Kathy Persons for her years of service as she prepares to retire. And our next meeting will be next Thursday, February 6th at 4:30 in the Schaefer Room. Thank you, Supervisor.
Great. Thank you so much, Councilmember Moskowitz. We'll move on to economic development, historic preservation, and environmental conservation.
Thank you, Supervisor. As you know, we meet on the first Friday of every month, and we meet right here at Town Hall at 8:30 in the morning. The big thing that came out of our committee, and which is on the agenda tonight for the short-term rental resolution, that I believe that went to the Planning Board Committee to look at a problem that we're having on Milton Keys and try to prevent that problem from spreading about the residential areas of our town. I think the Planning Board Committee did a very good job on that. I do want to stress that this regulation takes into consideration all of the recommendations of the Planning Board, or nearly all of the recommendations of the Planning Board. And I do think it will solve the problem that we have on Milton Keys, because it does require all short-term rentals to be hosted. And I think that is the big difference between what's going on over there now and what will eventually calm that down. So we will be voting on that resolution later on this evening. And I do stress all to attend these committee meetings. Mine will be the first Friday of February. And just on a side note, I know there's been a lot of talk tonight about committees and following committee recommendations. And I just want to say the logo committee is a good example of that. They put a lot of time and effort to finding a logo for the town of Niskayuna, and I think we should follow their expert opinion on that, just like we should follow the expert opinions of our planning board. So we will see how that vote goes later this evening.
All right. Thank you so much, Councilmember Delarada. I wanted to take a few minutes rather than rehash what we're already going over in our committee reports, but to just sort of walk through some of the focuses. We're in January. I've been talking with all of the department heads and attending committee meetings to find out the types of things that we'll be focusing on for this year. Some of them are things that we've already been working on. Some of them are new things. Most of them are a lot of small projects that really need to be buttoned up. So just briefly, I wanted to run through the different departments and some of the things that we'll be focusing on for 2025. Jessica already mentioned the grant. What I really want to emphasize here is that this is a $500,000 grant. That's a really big grant. So we are not typically in a great position to get grants like this, because we are a community that has a mean income that is much higher than many other communities. And so oftentimes we're sort of not considered for grants like this, and we were very lucky to get this grant. It is a bit focused on what we have to spend it on, but a lot of it is some very cool equipment that we would have had to upgrade to later on. So this grant is really taking equipment purchases out of the budget for potentially next year and the year after, and replacing things earlier than we would have been able to, but really should have. So this is a really big grant, and Chief Koshin did a great job in getting this all together. Really, it was a very quick turnaround, and all of the money will be spent in this fiscal year. I think it's September that it has to be spent by. So that's a really big deal. The other thing that we've been focusing on, and we mentioned one of them today, is to look through some of our code to make sure that it makes sense, and to make sure that we are, actually practicing what we have in writing. So we talked about the application process. We are more and more, we're having events that are sort of bigger at a larger scale, and we don't necessarily have code that enables us to do the things that we need to do in order to regulate those types of events and make sure that we have the right public safety measures in place, road closures, things like that. So that will be something we'll be looking into, I believe, next month or the month after we had that on. The police department is also in the process of accreditation. So they have the New York State DCJS law enforcement agency has an accreditation program that pretty much will enable our police department to make sure that we're adhering to best practices, but then we also have a built-in mechanism to make sure that those best practices are carried out through this accreditation process and hopefully the renewal of it over the years. So it's an important and really big job that they're taking on, and they're doing amazing work. If you're interested in that sort of thing and you want to come to a committee meeting, I'm sure Jordan would love to talk with you about it. The other focus is traffic. It's something that was reported in our comprehensive plan committee through the surveys that we did, and just in general, talking with people about traffic. So it remains an issue in Niskayuna, just like in anywhere else. And so, one of the goals for the year is to make sure that we're utilizing our technology and our patrol vehicles in the best way possible, and really addressing things that cause crashes and cause incidents like distracted driving and maybe following too closely. And of course, we're closely following anything that we can do to get some more funding for Route 7 and mitigating the traffic issues there as well. I'm going to move on to IT. We've talked about this a lot in the last few months because we're really kind of getting together a plan potentially for 2025, but because we're so far behind in IT, I think we'll probably extend this on beyond that. We've been really under investing in technology. And one of the things that I constantly hear in these meetings and in interactions with residents is that we need to spend less money and we need to reduce taxes. Well, we can't do that in the real world with the labor costs that we have and the cost increases that we experience the same way you do at home. The only way that we can mitigate those costs is by utilizing technology, and we have to invest in it in order to use it. We have not been investing in technology. It's a tough sell. As we've seen, we've gone through 2 iterations of contracts in here where we've talked through what that means for us as an investment. We have, I'll just pull up our list here of the things we're focusing on this year. The phone system, the phones in this building are not, they're unsupported by the manufacturer. That's how old they are. We also have a utility management. That's our water and sewer billing system that is not working out for us well either. That is also unsupported by the company that owns it. That is how old these technologies are. So we're evaluating that. We've got a lot of great information, and we're trying to make the best decisions possible with the funding that we have in place in this budget. We're also still looking into the resident payment portal, a sort of centralized billing center. We had the representative from the company that we think we'll go with here on Monday in person to kind of walk through what that would mean. So again, we're parsing that out, making sure that we have the funding for it. And then we also need to address some really basic safety things in this building. We had a lot of recommendations from Homeland Security that came in a couple years ago. Some of them we were able to do quickly. Most of them we were not. One of the most important ones that we're looking into doing sooner rather than later is upgrading the cameras inside the building and outside of the building. Again, something we've been really under investing in over the years. We also have a mandate to move from a .org to a .gov domain. We have to do that by July, and that's going to be a project that's undertaken by IT and probably should have happened sooner than, right next to the deadline. But those are projects that we have to focus on for this year as well. For water and sewer, the obviously big project here is the rate study project. We had a kickoff call internally on Monday where we had our project team that we'll be working with. We had a joint call with the water and sewer department, and we shared the information with our comptroller. It's a lot of information gathering. I actually thought we were super behind and we're waiting on information from the billing software that we can't obtain because the software is so old, we can't even extract it. So we're waiting for that, but we're about 80% through with the data that we need to get to Raftellus. A few other things that we're picking apart, some nuance to the way we do things. We want to get them some information, so we're still doing that. One of the things that will happen hopefully later this week, potentially at the beginning of the next week, is we're sending out a call for volunteers through email. If you're not on our email list, please make sure you sign up if you're interested. This is for our stakeholder advisory group. I already have about 3 residents that have expressed interest, like heavy interest in doing this, and I'm grateful for them. But we would also really like to have at least one representative from Sewer District 1, and potentially a representative from a larger household or someone that uses a lot of water but doesn't necessarily want to use a lot of water, and a small business if we can as well. So if you have friends, relatives that live in town that might fit into those categories, we'd really like to get a nice representative group. They'll be providing input, but then they're also going to hopefully help us to disseminate the information that really needs to get out. We're trying to be better at communication, but I think having pockets of people that are talking about the things that we're dealing with here are going to be helpful. So it will be as much input as it is output. We're also, we're able to get that money from Phil Stack. However, that is what's called a reimbursable grant. So that $500,000 is just theoretical until we actually spend the money. So we're trying to get quotes on the first part of our water tower project to see if we might be able to get that done and get it reimbursed, to make sure we can secure that funding in there, and also to get part of the project completed. So we're working on quotes for that as well, and also working on quotes for other infrastructure upgrades that we're trying to get funding for as well. We're pushing the state really hard to get whatever we can. As I mentioned, it's tough for us to get grants. So any way that we can pull money in, we're going for it. Right now, we've got some big issues on River Road and Rosendale Road. They're county roads. So we're also going to the county to see what they can help us with as well. And even though they're trying to get things sorted out at the federal level, I've also had conversations with Tonko's office about potentially using some FEMA funding to help us supplement a project that the county was already doing, hopefully later this year. So more to come on that. We also, part of the information that we have to give Raftellus, which is the company that's doing our water rate study, is the contracts that we have with the city of Schenectady. We do not have an active contract with them. We have one that's expired with language that we don't really like, and we would like to renegotiate. It sounds like an easy thing to do, but we really just need to get the right people in the room and have a conversation about what makes sense. And we're really hopeful that the city is going to be able to work with us with a price that we can all feel good about. Moving on to highway and parks, we talked about equipment costs. Ray has been amazing. He has this pot of money that we knew was for all of these different pieces of equipment, and he spent a lot less than he anticipated. He was worried that we would go into this year and we would see some spikes in cost, and he's been able to find us some good deals to give us some cushion and to make sure that if something else does come in a little bit higher later in the year, we've got a little bit of money left to work with. Yard waste, talked about that. We are trying to attack this problem in a bunch of different directions. So that will be something we talk about consistently throughout the year. We have a few ideas on ways that we can try to get the costs down, but we want to be able to provide the same level of service while also, at least making an attempt to get those costs down because they're intense. We had a meeting with a lot of our outside youth sports organizations, mostly about park projects. I'm not doing any park projects. I know it's sort of a tempting thing in an election year, but I'm not going to do that. We have a lot of small projects that really need to be wrapped up. Some of them are connected to grants that we haven't even realized that money yet because we've been short-staffed and we haven't had the proper equipment and we haven't had the time or the resources to do these things. So my goal this year is to really just tighten all of that up and to make sure that we're using what we have. And thank goodness that we have people that we're going to be able to put in positions to help us with that as well. But that will be the biggest focus. And then hopefully with the collaboration with our youth sports teams that use our fields a ton, we have a trail maintenance set of volunteers that we really want input from. And then, of course, any data that we got from the public from our comprehensive plan study on parks and green space, we want to incorporate that into something that looks loosely like maybe a 3-year, 5-year park plan. Let's button up what we have now and then plan moving forward so that we have like real direction and we're not just haphazardly kind of throwing things together. It's nice when grant money comes your way, but it's even better if we've got a plan for a way forward that everybody feels good about. And I also, this is a sort of a personal project. I really want to work on the relationships that we have, not only with our county folks in highway, but also DOT. We've had a lot of like small issues because we have a bunch of these town roads that butt up to county roads and state roads. And there's some gray area and weird things. And we don't always have the best relationships in getting things done in other areas of government. So one of my goals is to make sure that I have those connections and that we've got some open lines of communication to make things a little bit easier. In community programs, we are talking with our farmers market team to make sure that we have a great season coming up, potentially involving some community programming in, this is sort of kitschy, so I don't know if that's what we do, but sort of like a get healthy. We dropped our fun fitness run last year because there wasn't a lot of interest. And so we're sort of looking at, well, how can we get people interested in eating healthy food and being outside and being fit? So that's things that we've been talking about. And also expanding our involvement from the town perspective in things like Niska Day, National Night Out, the Christmas parade, things that we haven't been really heavily involved in, that we have capacity and interest. And we had a dynamite year for community programs. Everything was very well attended and people really enjoyed it. And that's the kind of stuff that we want to be providing for folks in our community. Another thing I'm looking into is trying to find places that we can afford to provide senior programming that's a little bit closer to town center. We've got a community center that is old and in need of a lot of work, but they still do a lot of programming there. One of the things I hear consistently is that it would be nice to have some walkable programming from Old Niskayuna or from other areas more central to town that do have that walkability or that are a little easier to get to. So I have a couple of ideas that we're working with. One of them seems a little bit more viable than the other, so you'll hear a little bit more about that later on. I also met with the food bank last week. We had a food program through Gershon's where lunches are delivered and at a very low cost, at cost for Gershon's. Obviously, their prices have gone up over the years, and so the lunches need to go up, and this has caused a little bit of anxiety for our senior center. That made me think, well, if we really have seniors who are on a fixed income and need help, food is an area the town can help with. So I went over, I talked with the food bank. They're gathering a bunch of data and information that would have otherwise not been available to us. And they're going to see what kinds of programs we can get for free and then offer us some programs that would be really robust for a small amount of money. And we're going to see if we can find someone to sponsor those programs for us. Again, more to come on that. We're also actively working on a project for the train station. We have an outside group that is willing to help us with grants and with the design moving forward. So you'll hear some more about that as well. And then lastly, in the sort of general comptroller administration area, we have a townwide drainage study that is going to be launching sometime in the next 2 months, I would say. We have a provider that we are very much excited to use, but we want to make sure that we're looking at all of the areas of town that may be problematic for drainage. So you'll hear more about that later on. I think we were targeting sort of the end of February to reach out to the public about it. But that's a project that I think really needs to be completed sooner rather than later so that our planning decisions make sense as far as making sure that we're not flooding areas of town that might have otherwise been dry. I mentioned again the FOIL processes. They're becoming more and more expensive. Sometimes people are asking for materials that don't exist, but we're still looking for them. And that time is real time. It is real human people that you guys as taxpayers are paying a lot of money for. So we need to fix our FOIL process. And one of the things I'm asking our my new confidential secretary to do is to do some research on how other municipalities do this and what their processes are. They may be able to give us some good ideas. And then again, updating those old policies. I talked about code updates as one. We have an investment policy that's an internal policy that's in here that's updating. We're going through all of them to make sure that the way we're doing things makes sense and that it's documented properly and we have the backup to allow us to do it. And lastly, communication. I think that's been our struggle all along. We don't have a ton of staff to help us with that. So we're trying to get creative in the ways that we reach out to you. The emails are not working, not necessarily social media either. So we're looking at things like Niski Neighbors Magazine. and your Niskuna that gets delivered to your mailbox every Wednesday. We have some pricing that we think might actually be a better investment than getting email marketing software. So we're trying to upgrade our email marketing, but then also, sort of wisely investing in print materials that will be delivered to a wider swath of our residents. So I apologize. I try not to be so wordy, but we had a relatively short first part of the meeting. So there I went with all of my details. If you have any questions on any of this, I encourage you to reach out to me. It's a super easy email address, supervisor@niskuna.org. You can always stop by and talk with us or any of our departments about any of the stuff that I talked about or that our council members talked about tonight in their committee reports. So I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to the resolutions and we'll get started. Okay, the first one we have is Resolution 2025-25, which is sponsored by Councilmember McPartlin. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution hiring additional employees in the town's Office of Community Programs.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? No? All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
Great. We'll move on to 2025-26, sponsored by Councilmember Moskowitz.
A resolution authorizing the purchase of parts for sewage equipment for pump station repairs.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Not really an exciting resolution, really. All right. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes on to 2025-27, sponsored by Councilmember McPartlin.
A resolution authorizing the purchase of a mower and related equipment for use by the town's Parks Department.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? This is part of that equipment list that we're going to kind of rattle through. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes on to 2025-28, sponsored by Councilmember McPartlin.
A resolution authorizing the purchase of a pickup truck for use in the town's highway department.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes. 2025-29, sponsored by Councilmember Brennan.
A resolution accepting the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant Award.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just again, this is that $500,000 grant that has allocated purchases already embedded in it.
All right.
It's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. It's really
A lot of
exciting.
money.
Going shopping.
I know. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes. And on to 13, which is an introduction of proposed local law. Local Law A 2025, sponsored by Councilmember Brennan. What's the procedural for this? And that's it? Well, it's really uneventful. Okay. We'll move on to 14, which is 2025-30, sponsored by Councilmember Brennan.
A resolution calling for a public hearing on proposed amendments to Chapter 151 entitled Peddling and Soliciting of the Code of the Town of Niskuna.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this? You sort of alluded to this. We'll have the code out there for you to look at, and then once we get the hearing going, you can give us feedback on that if you'd like.
Well, I used to sell vacuum cleaners back in the day, and this regulation would probably put me out on the streets.
Thankfully, I just haven't had a vacuum salesman at my house lately.
Actually, they were home cleaning systems. We never called them vacuum cleaners.
It's your mistake.
Good marketing.
You're showing your age, John. That's not good. You don't want to do that.
All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes on to 2025-31, sponsored by Councilmember Brennan.
A resolution authorizing payment of the 2025 membership for the Zone 5 Regional Law Enforcement Training Academy.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this?
Again, this is just our yearly fee for Zone 5, which guides our mandatory training and our, that's what I'm looking for, accreditation.
All right. Did I ask for a second? I think I had a second, right? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes on to 2025-32, sponsored by Councilmember McPartlin.
A resolution authorizing the purchase of a vac truck for use in the Highway Department.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? One thing I just want to point out, because I had this question, I think of vac truck and I think of the leaf thing, but this is actually a really essential tool in cleaning out the areas that are important for drainage. So this was something that came up when we were talking about our drainage study as well. Just in case you thought it was a leaf sucker truck, which is what I thought it was. Any additional discussion?
Instead of a vacuum truck, we should call it a home cleaning system.
Oh my gosh,
I like it.
a sewer cleaning system.
Make it sound a little fancier.
You know what? You're onto something there.
Cleans the whole system.
If only it did, right? All right, please call the roll.
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes on to 2025-33, sponsored by Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
A resolution appointing a payroll clerk in the Comptroller's Department.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this? All right, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes on to 2025-34, sponsored by Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
A resolution appointing a senior account clerk in the Comptroller Department.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this? This is to fill the vacancy for our AP clerk who left for another position at the end of the year. So we are very grateful to have someone from civil service coming in. Any additional discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes 2025-35, sponsored by Councilmember Brennan.
A resolution appointing a executive secretary 2 in the Police Department.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes 2025-36, sponsored by Councilmember Moskowitz.
A resolution approving the reconciliation of residential and commercial utility rents charged in the collection for the first half of 2024.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes 2025-37, sponsored by Councilmember Moskowitz.
A resolution authorizing the reconciliation of the third quarter of 2024 corporate utility billing.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes on to 2025-38, sponsored by Councilmember McPartlin.
A resolution appointing 2 grounds workers in the town's Parks Department.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this? We're super excited.
Yes, we are. Welcome David and Gregory to the team.
All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes. 23 is an introduction of local law B, 2025, sponsored by Councilmember Brennan. And I apparently just say that and move on to the next thing, which is 2025-39, sponsored by Councilmember Brennan.
A resolution calling for a public hearing on proposed local law B, 2025, to amend the Vehicle and Traffic Code to prohibit on-street parking on a portion of Onondaga Road.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this? This has gone, I think we've talked about this a couple times where this is a no parking thing.
Yeah, this came about because two residents came to our committee meeting and spoke about their concern for safety and visibility, and we were able to look into it and determine we needed more safety measures.
Fabulous. All right. Any other discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes under 2025-40, sponsored by Councilmember McPartlin.
A resolution authorizing the purchase of a hydro seeder for use in the town's highway department.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes 2025-41, sponsored by Councilmember Moskowitz.
A resolution appointing an assistant to the superintendent of water and sewer.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
Motion passes 2025-42, sponsored by Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
A resolution authorizing certain budgetary modification and inter-fund transfers.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes on to 2025-43, sponsored by Councilmember Delarada.
A resolution hiring student workers.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes 2025-44, sponsored by Councilmember McPartlin.
A resolution authorizing the purchase of a sidewalk clearing machine with attachments for the town's Parks Department.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes 2025-45, sponsored by Councilmember McPartlin.
A resolution authorizing the purchase of a skid steer for the town's Highway and Parks Department.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes 2025-46, sponsored by Councilmember McPartlin.
A resolution authorizing the purchase of an excavator for use in the town's highway department.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes 2025-47, sponsored by Councilmember McPartlin.
A resolution authorizing the purchase of a tractor for use in the town's Parks Department.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The motion passes 2025-48, sponsored by Councilmember Delarada.
A resolution enacting a local law amending Chapter 220 entitled Zoning of the Code of the Town of Niskayuna.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
This. Good.
Just briefly, this does take the planning board recommendations It does require that all short-term rentals be hosted. It does limit the vehicles to one per bedroom, plus the person hosting the short-term rental. It does limit the people there to 2 per bedroom, and the occupants cannot have guests. So I do believe that this will solve the problem that we've been having and keep our neighborhoods more residential.
This is one of those resolutions that I gave a lot of extra thought to since the process began. There were some days when I would think about it and I was 150% for it. And there were other days when I was 150% against it. But like we all did, I listened to the feedback from our residents at privilege of the floor, at public hearings, the majority of who were in favor of it. And I had some conversations with people who weren't necessarily in favor of it. But I think ultimately what it comes down to is protecting our residents' quality of life. And I feel that as elected officials and as their representatives, that's one of our largest responsibilities. So that was a huge deciding factor for me. Another deciding factor for me was that when I originally ran for office, I promised to always protect our town's residential character. And like Natalie said, these short-term rentals are essentially businesses. And by allowing an abundance of those businesses in our neighborhoods, I feel like I'd be going against that promise, which I am not prepared to do. There are people who are definitely not thrilled about this new local law, but we're resilient and I think we'll adapt. And it's a work in progress. We've had some really encouraging discussions as a board, whether we agreed or not. And I think a few months down the road, if we see the need to change, we can do that. This is a work in progress. We can look back at it and make changes as the community sees fit. But I think accepting this recommendation from the planning board is our best starting point.
Yeah, I'd like to add that I had conversations with everyone here, with department heads, with residents, and I too am very thankful for all the work the planning board put into this. I do believe this code could be more tailored to the problem. I think parts of it are too restrictive. I think there's a better way to balance homeowners' rights while ensuring STRs are not a detriment to our neighborhoods. We've had STRs in Niskuna for many years with no problems. Regulating STRs out of existence is extreme and not needed. So I will be voting no tonight on this resolution.
So there was a lot of work that was put into this. We had 2 public hearings, okay? 2 public hearings. Public hearing on this resolution that's in front of us tonight. We also had a public hearing on another possible resolution with a different proposed code. The one that we have here in front of us this evening is pretty much the one that we got from our planning board. Some small adjustments have been made to it, very small, but that was done with advice from our legal counsel to the board. As the board members have said, we had a lot of discussions, not as a group, but to each other as individuals. We've talked to a lot of residents in the town about this and what we can do as a board and as a community about short-term rentals. So that's where we're at right now with this resolution in front of us. I feel is a good starting point for us as far as short-term rentals are concerned in the town of Niskuna. Some people came forward and said they didn't want any short-term rentals, none at all. But we got legal opinions about that really wouldn't be possible. So we the planning board put a code together, and I think they did an exceptional job, and that's the resolution that is in front of us this evening.
Any additional discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
No.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
I recuse. The motion passes. We'll go on to 2025-49. Sponsored by Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
A resolution amending town's investment policy.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Just as an explanation of this, we had an old investment policy that reading it in theory made sense, but in practice and in today's times where we're doing electronic deposits, it made more sense to sort of adjust it to make sure that the monies were getting where they needed to be when they needed to be there. So we made some slight adjustments to that. Any additional discussion? We talked a little bit about it at finance, but I just want to make sure you knew what it was. All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes,
5 ayes.
the motion passes. 2025-50, sponsored by Councilmember Brennan.
A resolution amending Resolution 2024-250.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this?
This is that resolution where we're upfitting 3 police vehicles instead of 2 with no additional cost to our budget.
Any additional discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes,
5 ayes.
the motion passes, and we have one ceremonial resolution, 2025-51, sponsored by Councilmember Moskowitz.
A resolution recognizing Kathy Persons for her many years of service to the town of Niskuna.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll just say, I know Kathy isn't here tonight, but maybe she's listening. I know she's been here and worked in so many different departments over the years. And I know Matt would have loved to have been here to speak on her behalf, but had a family issue that he couldn't be here this evening. But we do want to say that we're all very grateful for the many years of service that Kathy's provided. I believe her last day is on Friday, and I just want to say thank you publicly.
Yes, she was a very valuable employee to the town. And if you read the resolution, she worked in the police department, in the town clerk's office, in the controller's office, did pretty much anything that the town needed, many positions. And then most of her time was spent in the water and sewer department. And we wish her the best. And thank you for all your years of service.
All right.
Dedicating almost 25 years to public service, especially in the same jurisdiction, is quite remarkable. Like Councilman McPartlin said, she had quite a few roles here in Town Hall over those 25 years, but she was always smiling and happy to help. So I was happy to have her for the few years that I was here and to work with her, and wish her luck.
All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Cassidy Dorian.
Yes,
5 ayes.
the motion passes. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.
Yes, we did. Gosh.